I sat at my desk, laptop open to the mandatory company-wide video call. Yesterday, the founder's nephew, my direct boss Tyler, sent a message to all 300 employees. Gracie Martinez will publicly admit her mistakes on tomorrow's call. But I wasn't reading an apology. I was reading from a legal document, my voice steady as I listed dates, times, and names of his audit manipulation. Someone's camera went black. A whispered voice cut through. "Is she reading from a deposition?" Tyler's face froze on screen. Justice had arrived. 6 months before that explosive moment, I stood in the lobby of Helix Technologies on my first day of work, smoothing down my navy blazer and trying to calm the butterflies in my stomach. At 29 years old, I had finally landed my dream position, senior financial analyst at one of Austin's fastest-growing software companies. The journey to this moment had been long and exhausting. I started at community college while working full-time at a call center, then transferred to a state university where I juggled classes with 2 part-time jobs. After graduating with my bachelor's degree, I spent 3 years working as a junior analyst while completing my MBA at night. My student loan balance was still north of $60,000, a number that haunted me every month when the payment came due. But standing in that sleek, modern office with its exposed brick walls and floor-to-ceiling windows, I felt like all the sacrifice had been worth it. The recruiter had promised generous benefits, competitive salary, and a culture built on transparency and ethics. The company website featured smiling employees and quotes about integrity and innovation. My boss, Tyler Brennan, 34 years old and impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, met me in the lobby with a warm handshake and an even warmer smile. He had thick, dark hair, confident posture, and the easy charm of someone who had never worried about making rent. "Welcome to the team, Gracie," he said, leading me through the office. "I think you're going to love it here. We're like a family." Tyler was the nephew of Gerald Brennan, the founder who had built Helix from a garage startup to a company valued at over $200 million. Tyler had joined the company 5 years earlier and quickly risen to lead the entire finance department. He spoke passionately about the company's mission, about mentorship and promoting from within, about building something meaningful together. He introduced me to my team. Sarah, 42, was a single mom with 15 years of experience and a patient, kind demeanor. Diego, 26, had just graduated from the University of Texas with honors and brought youthful energy to everything he did. Marcus, 38, was former military with a methodical approach and quiet intensity. They all seemed genuinely welcoming. Sarah offered to grab coffee with me that afternoon to give me the informal tour. Diego shared his favorite lunch spots within walking distance. Marcus simply nodded and said, "Good to have you aboard," which felt like high praise from someone so reserved. My responsibilities included preparing quarterly financial reports, analyzing expense trends, supporting budget forecasting, and helping coordinate the annual audit process. The work was challenging, but exactly what I wanted to be doing. I had my own desk by a window, a company laptop, and access to professional development courses. For the first 3 weeks, everything felt perfect. I arrived early, stayed late, learned the systems quickly, and built rapport with my colleagues. Tyler checked in regularly, offering guidance and praising my attention to detail. I felt grateful, hopeful, like I had finally made it after years of struggle. Then came the first audit prep meeting. It was a Thursday afternoon in late April. Tyler gathered the finance team in a conference room to discuss the upcoming annual audit. External auditors from a Big Four accounting firm would arrive in 6 weeks to review our financial statements. Our job was to prepare all supporting documentation and ensure everything was accurate and complete. Tyler stood at the whiteboard, marker in hand, walking through the timeline and assignments. Most of it was straightforward. Then, almost casually, he turned to me. "Gracie, I need you to handle something for me. We have some vendor payments in the March files that need to be reclassified. I'll send you the list. Just move them from operating expenses to capital expenditures." I nodded, taking notes, but something in my brain caught on the request. My accounting training kicked in. Reclassifying expenses as capital expenditures would move costs off the current quarter's income statement and onto the balance sheet, spreading them over multiple years. It would make our quarterly results look better than they actually were. I tried to phrase my question carefully. Can I ask why we're reclassifying them? Were they originally coded incorrectly? Tyler's smile stayed in place, but something shifted in his eyes. No, they were coded fine. This is just standard practice. The auditors prefer it this way. Makes the reporting cleaner. But if the original classification was correct, I started. Then reclassifying them would be. Tyler cut me off smoothly. Gracie, I appreciate your thoroughness. That's exactly why we hired you. But trust me on this one. I've been through 5 audits here. The auditors sign off on our methodology every year. It's completely normal. I felt a flutter of unease in my chest, but told myself I was overreacting. I was new. I didn't understand the company's established practices yet. Tyler had years of experience and the trust of the founder. Surely he knew what he was doing. Sarah, Marcus, and Diego said nothing, their faces carefully neutral. The meeting ended, and we filed out. I went back to my desk, but the unease stayed with me. That evening, Tyler sent me the list of transactions to reclassify. There were 47 vendor payments totaling nearly $300,000. I stared at my screen, my finger hovering over the mouse. Every instinct I had said this wasn't right. But Tyler's words echoed in my head. Standard practice, auditors prefer it, completely normal. I made the reclassifications and tried to ignore the knot in my stomach. 2 days later, Tyler stopped by my desk with coffee and a smile. Great work on those reclassifications, Gracie. See? I told you it was no big deal. You're going to fit in perfectly here. He walked away, and I sat there holding my coffee, wondering why I felt like I had just crossed a line I couldn't uncross. Later that day, Tyler made another comment in passing that stuck with me. My uncle built this company from nothing, he said during a team lunch. We protect it. That's what family does. The word family felt less like inclusion and more like a warning. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had just been tested, and by complying, I had shown Tyler exactly what kind of employee I would be. Over the next 2 months, Tyler's requests became more frequent and more aggressive. Each one came with the same casual tone, the same reassuring smile, the same implication that questioning him meant I wasn't a team player. In early May, he asked me to delay recording certain invoices until after the quarter closed. The invoices are dated the 31st, but the vendor won't cash them for weeks anyway. No need to rush the entry. In mid-May, he wanted me to estimate revenues for 2 software contracts that hadn't actually closed yet. The deals are 99% done. We need to show the revenue this quarter to hit our targets. In late May, he handed me a folder of reconciliation notes and said, The auditors don't need to see these. They just create confusion. Remove them from the audit files before you upload anything. Each request chipped away at my professional integrity. Each time I complied, I felt a little sicker. I started having trouble sleeping. I would lie awake at 3 a.m, staring at the ceiling, mentally reviewing generally accepted accounting principles, and wondering how far I had already strayed from them. But I also knew what was at stake if I refused. I had $8,000 in my savings account. My rent was $2,000 a month. I had co-signed my younger sister's student loans when she couldn't get approved on her own, which meant if I lost my income, her education was at risk too. I couldn't afford to lose this job. Still, some part of me needed to understand what I was involved in. I started documenting everything in a personal encrypted file on my laptop at home. I recorded the date and time of each request Tyler made, his exact wording when possible, and what financial impact each action had. I told myself I was probably overreacting, but I couldn't stop myself from creating a record. One afternoon in early June, I caught Sarah alone in the break room. She was microwaving her lunch, and I stood next to her, pretending to make tea. Can I ask you something? I said quietly. Has Tyler always been this involved in the details of how we code transactions? Sarah's expression went carefully blank. She glanced at the doorway, then back at me. Just do what he says, Gracie. Please. I pressed gently. It's just that some of his requests seem unusual. I'm trying to understand if this is normal here or if I'm missing something. Sarah's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. The last person who questioned him got fired for cause and couldn't collect unemployment. She couldn't get a reference. She's working retail now. My blood ran cold. Who was it? A woman named Julia. She was here for 3 years. Tyler said she had performance issues and insubordination on her record. She leaned closer. Just keep your head down. Do your work. Don't make waves. The microwave beeped, and Sarah grabbed her lunch and left without another word. Over the following weeks, I learned more about Tyler's history. He had fired 4 analysts in 2 years, all for supposed performance issues. None of them could get unemployment benefits because Tyler always documented misconduct. The HR director, Patricia, was Tyler's former college roommate, which meant any complaint to HR would go straight back to Tyler himself. I felt trapped in a tightening net. Tyler's behavior toward me shifted as the audit date approached. He started making comments about my attitude in team meetings. "Gracie seems hesitant about our established processes," he would say with a light laugh. "We need team members who trust the system." He criticized my work publicly, but never put anything in writing. If I asked for written confirmation of his instructions, he would say, "Do we really need to formalize every little thing? I thought you were more flexible than that." My anxiety spiked. I started having panic attacks in the bathroom at work, gripping the sink and trying to breathe through the tightness in my chest. I lost 12 pounds in 6 weeks because I could barely eat. Then, in mid-June, the external auditors arrived. They were from a prestigious accounting firm, 3 partners in their 40s and 50s, professionally dressed and carrying expensive leather briefcases. Tyler assigned me as the primary company contact for the audit, which should have been an honor. Instead, it felt like a trap. On the first day of the audit, after the initial meeting with the auditors, Tyler pulled me into his office and closed the door. He reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a small USB drive. "I need you to do something very important," he said, his voice low and serious. "The shared audit folder we set up for the auditors has the preliminary vendor files. I need you to replace those files with the versions on this drive." He held out the USB drive, and I took it automatically, my hand closing around the small piece of plastic. "What's on this?" I asked. "Updated files. Some of the dates and amounts needed correction." Something in his phrasing made my stomach drop. I went back to my desk, hands shaking, and inserted the USB drive into my computer. I opened one of the files. The dates had been changed. The amounts had been altered. I cross-referenced with the original file still on my desktop. Tyler hadn't corrected errors. He had falsified the records. I sat frozen at my desk, staring at 2 versions of the same invoice, the real one showing a payment date of March 15 and an amount of $12,800, and Tyler's version showing March 31st and an amount of $9,200. The changes would shift expenses between quarters and reduce our reported costs. This wasn't aggressive accounting or creative classification. This was fraud. I don't know how long I sat there. It could have been 5 minutes or 30. Finally, Tyler appeared at my desk. "Did you upload the new files yet?" I looked up at him, and for the first time, I saw him clearly. The charm was gone, replaced by cold calculation. "Tyler," I started, "these files." He leaned down, his hand on my desk, his face close to mine. "My uncle's health is failing, Gracie. His doctor says the stress could kill him. If this audit shows problems, our stock price crashes, and he loses everything before he can retire. Everything he built for 40 years, gone. You're going to help me protect him." He straightened up and smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You're a good person, Gracie. That's why you're going to do the right thing for this family." He walked away, leaving me holding the USB drive in my trembling hand. I knew if I refused, I would be fired. If I complied, I was complicit in securities fraud. Either way, my career could be destroyed. But, sitting there, feeling sick and scared and angry, I made a decision. I was going to gather evidence and report him. I didn't know exactly how yet, but I knew I couldn't be part of this anymore. I uploaded Tyler's falsified files to the audit folder as instructed. But first, I copied all the original files to my personal encrypted cloud storage. I took screenshots of Tyler's USB drive contents with timestamps. I documented everything. If I was going down, Tyler was coming with me. For the next 3 weeks, I lived a dangerous double life. On the surface, I was the compliant employee Tyler wanted. Helpful, agreeable, never questioning his instructions. Underneath, I was systematically building a case against him. I bought a small external hard drive and a personal laptop using cash, so there would be no credit card trail. Every night after work, I transferred files from my work laptop to my personal devices. I photographed original documents before altering them, using my phone's camera with location and timestamps turned on. I kept a detailed log with exact dates, times, and descriptions of every instruction Tyler gave me. The auditors continued their work, asking questions that I had to deflect with lies that made me feel physically ill. One of the audit partners, a sharp woman named Christine, seemed suspicious. "These vendor payment patterns are unusual," she commented during one review session. "The timing seems optimized to shift expenses between quarters." I forced myself to smile and repeat Tyler's prepared explanation about operational efficiency and payment processing cycles. Christine nodded but didn't look convinced. Tyler's demands escalated. He asked me to create backdated approval signatures using old email headers. He wanted me to fabricate an email trail showing that certain executives had authorized transactions they knew nothing about. He made me alter bank reconciliation statements to hide cash flow discrepancies. Each night, I documented everything. I saved Tyler's text messages, though he was careful to keep most communication verbal. When he did email me, his messages were vague. "Please review the items we discussed and make the necessary adjustments." I started recording our in-person conversations on my phone, keeping it in my jacket pocket with the voice memo app running. The stress was crushing. I lost more weight. Dark circles appeared under my eyes. My hands developed a tremor I couldn't control. My younger sister called me one evening and asked if I was okay because I sounded different, hollow somehow. I told her I was just tired from work. In early July, something happened that changed everything. Diego, the young analyst who sat 2 desks away from me, stayed late one evening. I thought I was alone when I was photographing a set of invoices Tyler had asked me to modify. Diego walked past my cubicle and saw my phone positioned over the documents. He stopped. "What are you doing?" My heart seized. I had been so careful, and now I had been caught by a colleague I barely knew. I had no idea if I could trust him. For a long moment we stared at each other. Then Diego pulled up a chair and sat down. "Tyler's making you change things too, isn't he?" Diego said quietly. I didn't know what to say. If I admitted anything and Diego went to Tyler, I was finished. But Diego continued. "He's been making me falsify timesheet records for our contract workers, coding overtime hours as regular hours so the company doesn't have to pay time and a half. I've been keeping copies because I'm terrified he's going to blame me if anyone finds out." Relief flooded through me, followed immediately by anger. How many of us is he manipulating? Diego and I spent the next hour comparing notes. Tyler had his hooks in both of us, leveraging our fear and our need for the job. We made a pact. We would both document everything and protect each other if Tyler tried to make either of us a scapegoat. Having an ally made me feel slightly less alone, but it also made me realize the scope of Tyler's operation. This wasn't just 1 or 2 questionable accounting decisions. This was systematic fraud involving multiple people and multiple types of financial manipulation. I decided I needed legal advice. I couldn't figure this out on my own anymore. I found a lawyer who specialized in corporate whistleblower cases. Janet Russo, a woman in her 50s with a reputation for taking on powerful companies. Her consultation fee was $500, which hurt my already stretched budget, but I paid it. I met Janet in her office on a Saturday morning in mid-July. I brought my laptop with all my documentation, my external hard drive, and a printed timeline of events. I laid it all out for her. Janet reviewed everything for over an hour, asking sharp questions and taking notes. Finally, she sat back in her chair. "This is substantial evidence of securities fraud," she said. "If your company is publicly traded or planning to go public, these manipulated financial statements could defraud investors. The SEC would be very interested in this." "What should I do?" I asked. Janet's expression was serious. "Whistleblower cases are brutal, Gracie. Companies retaliate even though it's illegal. You could be blacklisted in your industry. Your career could be destroyed. Even if you win eventually, the process takes years and costs you everything in the meantime. So I should just let him get away with it?" "I'm not saying that. I'm saying you need to understand what you're walking into." She leaned forward. "But here's what you have going for you. Federal whistleblower protection laws. If you make a formal complaint to the SEC, you become a protected whistleblower. Any retaliation against you becomes a federal crime with serious penalties." "How do I make it formal?" Janet explained the process. We would need to prepare a detailed deposition where I would provide sworn testimony about everything I had witnessed. The deposition would be recorded, notarized, and would become part of the official legal record. Then Janet would file a formal complaint with the SEC on my behalf. The deposition is crucial, she said. It locks in your testimony and your evidence. No one can claim later that you made things up or that you're unreliable. It's your shield. We scheduled the deposition for the following week. As I left Janet's office, I felt a mixture of fear and determination. I was going to do this. I was going to expose Tyler's fraud. But when I returned to work on Monday, something had changed in Tyler's demeanor. He called me into a private meeting in a windowless conference room. He didn't sit down. He stood with his arms crossed, studying me with cold eyes. "You've been acting strange, Gracie," he said, distracted, secretive. "Are you having doubts about being a team player?" My pulse hammered in my throat, but I forced myself to stay calm. "No, of course not. I've just been stressed with the audit workload, because I need to know everyone on this team is committed." He moved closer. "The audit closes in 6 weeks. After that, I'm restructuring the department, eliminating 2 analyst positions. Your future here depends entirely on how helpful you are during this process." It was a direct threat, and we both knew it. Comply completely, or lose everything. "I understand," I said, keeping my voice steady even though I wanted to scream at him. "Good." He opened the door. "I'm glad we had this talk." I went back to my desk and immediately texted Janet. "He just threatened me." She replied within minutes. "Document everything. We're moving forward with the deposition." The deposition took place on a Thursday afternoon at Janet's law office. I took a personal day from work, telling Tyler I had a dentist appointment. The room was small and formal, a conference table, recording equipment, a court reporter with a stenography machine. Janet sat next to me. A notary was present to swear me in. "Raise your right hand," the notary said. "Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?" "I do." For the next 4 hours, Janet walked me through everything. She asked me to describe each instance of Tyler's instructions to falsify records. I provided exact dates, times, and the specific changes he had demanded. I submitted my documentation, the original files, the altered files, the photographs, the voice recordings, the timeline I had created. I described Tyler's threats, his manipulation, his pattern of firing employees who questioned him. Diego had agreed to provide a written statement corroborating the timesheet fraud, and I submitted that as well. The court reporter's fingers flew across the machine, recording every word. The deposition was being videotaped. Everything I said was now part of the permanent legal record. When it was finally over, I felt drained and strangely calm. I had told the truth under oath. I had documented everything meticulously. Whatever happened next, I had done the right thing. Janet filed the sealed complaint with the Securities and Exchange Commission that evening. The SEC would review the evidence and decide whether to open a formal investigation. "This is where it gets real," Janet warned me as I prepared to leave her office. "From this moment, you're a federally protected whistleblower, but expect retaliation. Document everything that happens from here forward. Save every email, every text, every conversation. If they fire you or punish you, that's a federal crime, and we'll bury them." I returned to work the next day feeling like I was walking into enemy territory. Tyler watched me constantly, his eyes following me whenever I moved through the office. He didn't say anything, but I could feel his suspicion like a weight on my chest. 2 agonizing weeks passed. The audit was wrapping up. The external auditors seemed satisfied with the documentation Tyler had provided through me. They had no idea they were reviewing falsified records. I felt complicit in deceiving them, even though I had reported the truth to the authorities. I wondered if I had made a terrible mistake. The SEC investigation could take months or even years. Tyler could destroy my career long before any charges were filed. Maybe I should have just quit and walked away. Then, on a Friday afternoon in early August, Tyler called an unexpected team meeting. All 5 of us gathered in the conference room. Sarah, Marcus, Diego, me, and Tyler. Patricia, from HR, was also there, which immediately set off alarm bells. Tyler stood at the head of the table with a folder in front of him. His expression was grave. "I want to talk about performance standards and accountability," he began. "We've recently had some concerns about one team member's work quality and attitude." My stomach dropped. Tyler opened the folder and pulled out several pages. "Gracie, I'm placing you on a performance improvement plan effective immediately." He slid the document across the table to me. I picked it up with numb fingers and started reading. The PIP listed 30 impossible metrics I would need to achieve in 30 days, complete 10 detailed financial analyses with 0 errors, train all team members on new procedures that didn't exist, reduce processing time by 50%, achieve perfect attendance, including no sick days or personal emergencies. It was clearly designed to fire me. There was no way to succeed. But worse than the PIP itself was the attached documentation. Tyler had created an entire paper trail of supposed performance issues, emails I had never received warning me about mistakes, documented complaints from colleagues I had never heard about, notes from conversations we had never had. He had been building a case to fire me for weeks, maybe months, preparing his defense for when he got rid of me. Patricia spoke up, her voice professionally neutral. "Gracie, you'll have 30 days to demonstrate improvement in these areas. We'll have weekly check-ins to assess your progress." I looked at Sarah, Marcus, and Diego. They wouldn't meet my eyes. They were afraid, and I couldn't blame them. Tyler continued, his voice smooth and reasonable. "I've also scheduled a company-wide call for 2 weeks from now where we'll be discussing accountability and integrity in our department. It's important that everyone understands our standards." The meeting ended, and everyone filed out quickly, desperate to escape the tension. I sat there for a moment, staring at the fraudulent PIP in my hands. That evening, Tyler sent me a private message through the company chat system. "You have 2 choices, Gracie. Resign quietly by Monday, or I make an example of you on that company call." I stared at the message, rage and terror warring in my chest. He was going to publicly humiliate me and fire me in front of the entire company. He was going to destroy my reputation so thoroughly that I would never work in finance again. Then my phone rang. It was Janet. "The SEC just granted an expedited review based on the severity of your evidence," she said without preamble. "They're opening a formal investigation. But you need to know something. Tyler's legal team somehow found out. They're about to move against you." "How did they find out?" "I don't know. Maybe someone at the SEC leaked, or maybe they have connections. Either way, they know you filed a complaint, and they're going to try to discredit you before the investigation gains traction." I closed my eyes. So Tyler's company-wide call is his attempt to destroy your credibility publicly before anyone takes your accusations seriously? Janet paused. "But we can turn this around. That call is the perfect platform. You have your deposition. You have federal whistleblower protection. You have documented evidence of retaliation. What are you suggesting? Show up to that call. When he tries to make you confess to false allegations, you read from your deposition. You go public with the truth before he can bury you." I thought about it. It was risky and dramatic, and it could backfire spectacularly. But I was out of safe options. "Let's do it," I said. I spent that weekend in a state of focused fury. Every ounce of fear I had been carrying transformed into determination. Tyler thought he could bully me into silence, but he had miscalculated. I had the truth, I had evidence, and I had legal protection. On Saturday morning, I met with Janet at her office. We spent hours crafting my statement. It would be a strategic excerpt from my deposition, carefully chosen to include the most damning evidence while staying concise enough to deliver before anyone could stop me. The statement included specific dates when Tyler had instructed me to falsify vendor payments. It quoted his exact text messages. It referenced the USB drive with altered files. It named the fake email trails and backdated signatures. It mentioned Diego's corroborating testimony about timesheet fraud. It cited the SEC investigation case number. Remember, Janet coached me. Speak clearly and calmly. Don't let him interrupt you. Don't engage if he tries to shout you down. Just read the statement and let the evidence speak for itself. We practiced my delivery 20 times until my voice stayed steady and strong. On Monday morning, I did not resign. I showed up to work as usual. Tyler looked surprised and then angry when he saw me at my desk. He avoided me all day but sent increasingly hostile messages through the company chat. On Tuesday morning, Tyler sent the message that would change everything. It went to all 300 employees via the company-wide email distribution list. Subject: Mandatory company call. Wednesday, 9 a.m. All staff are required to attend tomorrow's video conference. We will be addressing serious violations of company policy. Gracie Martinez will publicly admit her mistakes regarding audit procedures and professional conduct. Tyler Brennan, Director of Finance. My phone started buzzing immediately. Co-workers I had considered friends sent messages ranging from sympathetic to curious to coldly judgmental. Several people I barely knew sent messages asking what I had done wrong. The rumor mill went into overdrive. By lunchtime, people were speculating that I had stolen money, falsified my resume, or sabotaged the audit. I heard whispers when I walked through the office. People stopped talking when I approached. Sarah passed my desk and wouldn't make eye contact. Marcus gave me a look that might have been pity or disgust. Even Diego seemed nervous around me, though he sent me a private message. I'm scared, but I believe you. That evening, Tyler sent me one final message. Last chance. Resign tonight and I'll tell everyone it was a mutual decision. Show up tomorrow and I will destroy you. I didn't respond. Instead, I spent Tuesday night receiving a flood of messages through LinkedIn and my personal email from people I didn't know. 5 former employees who Tyler had fired reached out, all within hours of each other. Somehow, word had spread through an informal network of people Tyler had burned. Helen, a woman of 41 who had worked at Helix 4 years ago, wrote, Tyler forced me to falsify contract terms and then fired me when I refused to commit fraud. He blacklisted me. I couldn't get another job in finance. I had to leave the industry entirely and start over in retail management. Please, whatever you're planning tomorrow, make him pay for what he did to all of us. Jordan, a man in his 30s, wrote, Tyler made me falsify safety inspection records for our hardware products. When I raised concerns that we were putting customers at risk, he fired me and told other companies I was let go for incompetence. I had to move to another state to find work. 3 others sent similar stories. Tyler had a pattern going back 5 years. Manipulate employees into committing fraud, then either keep them trapped through fear or fire them and ruin their reputations if they resisted. I forwarded everything to Janet, who immediately amended the SEC complaint to include information about the other whistleblowers. The 5 former employees agreed to provide their own depositions. On Tuesday night, I barely slept. I lay in bed rehearsing my statement, thinking about all the people Tyler had hurt, thinking about my younger sister who had always believed I would stand up for what was right. I thought about my parents, who had immigrated from Mexico, and taught me that integrity mattered more than comfort. They had sacrificed everything to give me opportunities. I wasn't going to waste those opportunities by staying silent in the face of corruption. Wednesday morning arrived. I dressed in a professional black pantsuit, did my makeup carefully, and practiced my statement one more time in front of the mirror. My hands were steady. My voice was strong. I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore. I was fighting for Helen and Jordan and all the others Tyler had destroyed. I was fighting for every employee who had ever been bullied into compromising their ethics. At 8:45, I logged into my work computer and opened the video conferencing link. The company-wide call would start in 15 minutes. I placed my printed statement on the desk in front of me, the pages neatly stapled and highlighted. I positioned my laptop camera so my face would be clearly visible. I took 3 deep breaths. At 8:55, employees started joining the call. Little video squares filled my screen. 300 faces from across the company. Some people looked curious, some looked uncomfortable. Some looked eager for drama. At 9 o'clock exactly, Tyler's face appeared in the main video window. He looked calm and confident, ready to execute his plan to humiliate and destroy me. He had no idea what was coming. Tyler started the meeting with practiced solemnity, his expression grave and disappointed, like a father about to discipline a wayward child. Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for joining this important call. Today we need to address a serious matter of trust and integrity that affects our entire organization. 300 faces watched silently. I could see my own video square in the corner of my screen, my face calm, my posture upright, my hands folded on the desk in front of my statement. Tyler continued, his voice heavy with false regret. At Helix, we pride ourselves on our values: honesty, accountability, and excellence. When someone violates those values, especially in a position of trust like our finance department, we have a responsibility to address it openly. He advanced to the next slide in his presentation. It showed a professional headshot of me from the company directory, with bullet points next to it listing supposed infractions, critical errors in audit preparation, violations of company policy, damage to client relationships, insubordination. My heart pounded, but I kept my face neutral. Gracie Martinez joined our team 6 months ago, Tyler said. Initially, we had high hopes, but over time, serious concerns emerged about her work quality and professional conduct. He clicked to the next slide, which showed what appeared to be email correspondence with complaints about my work. I recognized them as the fabricated documents from my PIP file. They were fake, but to everyone watching, they looked real and damaging. Tyler spent 10 minutes building his false narrative. He showed fake emails where I supposedly made major calculation errors. He displayed fake complaints from colleagues. He created a story of an employee who was incompetent, defensive, and ultimately dishonest. The worst part was watching my coworkers' reactions in their video squares. Some people looked sympathetic to me, but many looked convinced by Tyler's presentation. I could see people shaking their heads in disappointment. I saw someone typing furiously in the chat, probably commenting on my supposed failures. Then Tyler delivered his prepared conclusion. Despite multiple warnings and opportunities to improve, Gracie continued to make serious errors and show poor judgment. Yesterday, we discovered that she had been altering audit files without authorization, creating significant compliance risks for the company. That was a complete lie, but it was exactly the kind of accusation that would justify firing me and discredit anything I said afterward. Tyler's expression shifted to something almost compassionate. However, we believe in giving people a chance to take responsibility for their actions. Gracie, we're giving you the opportunity right now to acknowledge what you've done and apologize to your colleagues. The video conference went completely silent. 300 people waited for me to crumble, to cry, to beg for forgiveness. Tyler looked directly into his camera, which meant he was looking directly at me. Gracie, would you like to say something? I unmuted my microphone. Yes, I would. I picked up my statement and held it where the camera could see the official header at the top of the first page. I've prepared a statement, and I'm going to read it now. Tyler's face showed satisfaction. He thought I was about to apologize. He thought I was about to admit to his false accusations and quietly resign, allowing him to avoid any scrutiny. Instead, I began reading in a clear, steady voice. My name is Gracie Martinez. This statement is excerpted from my sworn deposition taken on July 21, 2024, in the matter of a complaint filed with the Securities and Exchange Commission, case number SEC-Webby-24-7639. Tyler's face changed instantly. The satisfaction drained away, replaced by shock and then quickly by rage. I saw his hand move toward his keyboard, probably to mute me or end the call, but I kept reading faster. On April 27, 2024, my supervisor Tyler Brennan instructed me to reclassify $300,000 in vendor payments from operating expenses to capital expenditures for the purpose of artificially improving quarterly financial results. On May 12th, he directed me to delay recording invoices totaling $120,000 until after the quarter close. On May 23rd, he asked me to estimate revenues for unclosed contracts totaling $400,000. People's cameras started moving as they leaned forward or sat back in shock. I heard someone gasp. The chat exploded with messages. I continued reading, my voice gaining strength. On June 15th, Tyler Brennan provided me with a USB drive containing falsified vendor files with altered dates and amounts. He instructed me to replace the original files in the audit folder with these falsified versions. I have retained copies of both the original files and the falsified files as evidence. Chaos erupted on the call. Multiple people started talking at once. Someone's video camera suddenly went black with a loud click. Through an unmuted microphone, I heard a whispered voice. Is she reading from a deposition? Tyler's face had gone pale. He was frantically typing, but nothing was stopping my audio. I kept reading. On July 8th, Tyler Brennan asked me to create backdated approval signatures using manipulated email headers. On July 15th, Colleague Diego Herrera provided corroborating testimony regarding instructions from Tyler Brennan to falsify timesheet records for contract workers to avoid paying overtime wages. The company's general counsel, a man named Richard who I had only met once, suddenly appeared in a video square. His face was bright red. "This call needs to end immediately. Everyone stop recording this. Tyler, Gerald, you need to disconnect now." But it was too late. I could see dozens of employees frantically screen recording. This was going to be preserved whether the company wanted it or not. I read the final section of my prepared statement. I have submitted to the Securities and Exchange Commission over 200 pages of documentary evidence including original financial records, photographs of falsified documents, email correspondence, text messages, voice recordings, and sworn testimony from multiple witnesses detailing systematic financial fraud at Helix Technologies. Gerald Brennan, the founder, appeared in a video square. He was 70 years old, gray-haired, and looked absolutely devastated. His voice was shaking. "Tyler, what is she talking about? What files? What SEC complaint?" Tyler tried to speak, but nothing came out. His mouth opened and closed silently. The confident manipulator had been replaced by a cornered criminal. Patricia from HR was practically shouting into her microphone. "Everyone log off this call now! This meeting is concluded! Log off immediately!" But I wasn't done. I set down the deposition excerpt and looked directly into my camera, speaking my own words now. I am a federally protected whistleblower under U.S. securities law. Everything I have stated here today is supported by documentary evidence, recorded testimony, and corroborating witnesses. I have fully complied with all legal obligations to report financial fraud and securities violations. Any retaliation against me or my colleagues is a federal crime punishable by criminal penalties and civil damages. I paused, letting that sink in, then added my final statement. I came to Helix Technologies believing in integrity and professionalism. I learned that some people value loyalty to family over loyalty to truth. But I also learned that silence protects the guilty and destroys the innocent. Not anymore. I clicked the button to leave the call. My hands were shaking violently now that it was over, but I felt powerful for the first time in months. I had stood up to a bully in front of 300 witnesses. I had spoken truth to power. Whatever happened next, I had fought back. My phone started ringing immediately. It was Janet. "That was perfect," she said. "Absolutely perfect. Now we wait for them to make their next move." I didn't have to wait long. Within 2 hours of the call ending, I received an email from Richard, the general counsel, requesting an immediate meeting. Janet accompanied me to the Helix Technologies office that afternoon. We were shown into a large conference room where 3 people waited. Richard, a representative from the board of directors, and Gerald Brennan himself. Tyler had been suspended pending investigation. Patricia from HR was not present. Gerald looked like he had aged 10 years in 10 hours. His hands trembled as he gestured for us to sit. "Miss Martinez, I owe you an apology," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "I built this company 40 years ago on the principle of honest business. I had no idea my nephew was doing any of this." Richard took over, his tone professionally cautious. "We are fully cooperating with the SEC investigation. We've turned over all our internal records and have hired an independent forensic accounting firm to conduct a complete review." The board representative added, "Gracie, you're being placed on paid administrative leave while the investigation proceeds, but we want to make clear that you're not under suspicion. We recognize your actions as those of a whistleblower reporting legitimate concerns." Janet spoke up. "My client will require written confirmation of her status, full cooperation with all investigations, and a commitment that there will be no retaliation." "You have all of that," Richard said immediately. He slid a document across the table. Over the following 6 weeks, the truth unfolded completely. The independent forensic audit discovered that Tyler's fraud totaled over $3 million in manipulated financial statements spanning 3 years. He had been siphoning money through fake vendor accounts he controlled. The 47 payments I had been asked to reclassify in my first month were just the tip of a massive scheme. The 5 former employees who had reached out to me provided detailed depositions. Their testimonies revealed a pattern of abuse and fraud going back 5 years. Tyler had systematically targeted vulnerable employees, manipulated them into compliance through threats and intimidation, and either kept them trapped or destroyed their careers when they tried to resist. The SEC investigation moved quickly because the evidence was so comprehensive. In September, Tyler was arrested and charged with securities fraud, wire fraud, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy. His bail was set at $500,000. Patricia, the HR director who had enabled him, was fired for gross negligence and failure to investigate employee complaints. The company discovered she had received numerous informal complaints about Tyler over the years and had buried all of them. Helix Technologies faced significant consequences. The SEC levied a fine of $2 million for inadequate internal controls and failure to prevent fraud. But the commission specifically credited the company for its cooperation after my disclosure and for taking immediate remedial action. The company implemented sweeping reforms, new financial controls with mandatory dual approvals, an independent ethics hotline managed by an outside firm, mandatory fraud detection training for all employees, and explicit whistleblower protections written into company policy. Gerald Brennan announced his retirement from day-to-day operations. He would remain as chairman emeritus but would no longer be involved in management. The board hired a new CEO from outside the company, a woman named Catherine who had previously turned around 2 other companies after financial scandals. Catherine's first action was to meet with me personally. We sat in her new office, and she looked at me with respect and something like awe. "I've spent 30 years in corporate America," she said. "I've seen dozens of people discover fraud. Most of them stay silent because they're afraid. You did something incredibly brave and incredibly difficult." "I appreciate that," I said carefully. "But I'm not sure I can stay here. There's too much trauma attached to this place." "I understand. But before you make that decision, hear me out." She leaned forward. "We need people like you, Gracie. People who have the courage to do what's right even when it costs them everything. I want to offer you Tyler's former position, Director of Finance. Full authority to rebuild the department, significant salary increase, and my personal commitment that you will have complete support from executive leadership." I was stunned. I would be overseeing the same department where I had been bullied and threatened months earlier. "I need conditions," I said finally. "Full transparency in all financial operations. Independent oversight. Protection for whistleblowers written into every employment contract. And I want authority to hire back the people Tyler fired unjustly if they're willing to return." "Done," Catherine said immediately. "All of it." I accepted the position. It felt like reclaiming something that had been stolen from me. Over the next several months, I rebuilt the finance department completely. I hired back Helen, who had been forced into retail management, and Jordan, who had moved to another state. Both of them were brilliant analysts who deserved a second chance. Sarah, Marcus, and Diego all received promotions for their eventual cooperation with the investigation. Sarah became my assistant director. Diego told me months later, with tears in his eyes, that I had shown him that doing the right thing doesn't make you weak. I created a mentorship program for young finance professionals, teaching them not just technical skills but how to recognize and report fraud. I brought in ethics training that focused on real scenarios and difficult choices. I wanted to create a department where integrity wasn't just a value on the wall but a lived practice. Tyler's criminal trial took place the following spring. He pleaded guilty to multiple felony counts in exchange for a reduced sentence. He was sentenced to 4 years in federal prison and ordered to pay $3.2 million in restitution. He would likely never work in finance again. Patricia lost her professional certifications and faced her own legal consequences for her role in covering up complaints. The company recovered. With transparent financial reporting and strong controls, investor confidence actually increased. The stock price rose 20% in the year following the scandal's resolution because investors valued the company's commitment to integrity. One afternoon, about a year after that explosive company call, Gerald Brennan asked to meet with me. He was preparing to fully retire and move to Florida to be near his grandchildren. We sat in his office, surrounded by photos of Helix's history, the garage where he started, the first office, the first major client. "I want to thank you, Gracie," he said quietly. "You saved my company. My nephew was destroying everything I built, and I was too blind to see it. You had the courage to do what I should have done." "You couldn't have known," I said. "But I should have." I trusted family over systems. I assumed loyalty meant protection. He shook his head. You taught me that real loyalty means holding people accountable, not covering for them. Before he left, he told me something that stayed with me. You didn't just expose fraud. You showed everyone in this company what integrity looks like in action. That's a gift that will last long after I'm gone. I thought a lot about what I had learned through this experience. I used to think that keeping your head down and being agreeable was how you survived in the corporate world. I believed that going along to get along was the smart path, that making waves endangered your career. I learned the opposite is true. Silence and compliance in the face of wrongdoing doesn't protect you. It destroys you from the inside. Every time you compromise your ethics to keep your job, you lose a piece of yourself. Eventually, there's nothing left but fear and complicity. I remembered the terror I felt when I first realized what Tyler was asking me to do. I remembered lying awake at night, sick with anxiety, feeling trapped and helpless. I remembered the moment I decided to start documenting everything, taking the first small step toward fighting back. The truth is, courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is deciding that your integrity matters more than your comfort. Some people will use your fear to control you, leveraging your need for income and security to make you complicit in their crimes. But documentation, truth, and the law are more powerful than any bully. I visited Helen at her new desk in our department. She had rebuilt her career and her confidence. Thank you for finishing what I couldn't, she told me. Thank you for not staying silent. I thought about all the people who had reached out to me, all the people Tyler had hurt. I thought about Diego, who had been so young and scared but had found the courage to document evidence and corroborate my testimony. I thought about Janet, my lawyer, who had guided me through the legal complexities and protected my rights. I hadn't fought alone. No one does. Courage is contagious, and so is integrity. At a corporate ethics conference 2 years after the scandal, I was invited to speak about whistleblower experiences. Standing at that podium in front of hundreds of finance professionals, I shared my story. I told them about the fear and the isolation. I told them about the documentation and the deposition. I told them about the moment I chose to fight back instead of running away. And I told them the most important lesson I learned. Your career will recover, your reputation will recover, your finances will recover, but if you compromise your integrity, you may never recover that. The person you become when you stay silent in the face of wrongdoing is someone you have to live with for the rest of your life. They asked me afterward how I found the courage. I told them the truth. I didn't feel courageous. I felt terrified every single day. But I decided that my self-respect mattered more than my salary. I decided that sleeping at night mattered more than keeping Tyler happy. I decided that the person I wanted to be was someone who stood up, not someone who stayed quiet. Today, I lead a department of 22 people. We process millions of dollars in transactions every quarter with accuracy and integrity. When new employees join my team, I tell them Tyler's story as a warning and my story as a promise. If anyone ever asks you to compromise your ethics, I will support you completely when you refuse. Have any of you ever faced a situation where you had to choose between your job security and your integrity? How did you handle it? What would you have done in my position? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, or if you believe more people need to hear about the importance of workplace integrity and standing up against fraud, please like this video and share it with others who might need encouragement to do the right thing. And if you want to hear more stories about overcoming workplace challenges and fighting for what's right, please subscribe to this channel. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it gives you courage if you ever find yourself in a similar situation. Remember, they tried to make me small. They tried to make me silent. Instead, I became someone who stands up, and that's a person I'm proud to be. Stay strong, stay honest, and never let fear keep you from doing what's right.